Everyone thought Amara was the quiet, timid girl who kept her head down in the school hallways. She never spoke unless spoken to, never raised her voice, never fought back. But the day 3 bullies cornered her in the gym, their laughter echoing off the walls. They made one fatal mistake. They put their hands around the throat of a girl who had been trained, since she was 9 years old, to survive at all costs. Asterisk, the rain in Manchester had a way of making everything seem heavier. The air, the streets, even the conversations between strangers. The sky was always a shade of gray that blurred the line between morning and evening, and the constant drizzle turned the brick buildings into dark, glistening monuments to a city that had weathered decades of change. For Amara Johnson, 17 years old and newly arrived from London, the rain was the one thing that felt familiar. Everything else, the people, the school, the way they spoke, felt foreign. Even if she was still in the same country. Her mother, a nurse at Manchester Royal Infirmary, left home before sunrise and returned well after sunset, the smell of antiseptic clinging to her clothes. The two of them lived in a small 2-bedroom flat above a row of shops on Oldham Road. The building was old. The pipes rattled in the winter, and the walls were thin enough for Amara to hear the muffled arguments of the couple downstairs. But it was a roof over their heads, and her mother always reminded her, "It's not where you live, it's how you live." At St. Albans High School, Amara was the quiet one. That's how teachers described her in staff meetings, how classmates referred to her when they couldn't remember her name. She was always there, but never in the mix. Her seat was in the last row by the window, where she could watch the rain streak down the glass during lessons. She kept her head down, finished her assignments early, and avoided attention. The truth was, Amara knew how to draw attention if she wanted to. She'd spent nearly half her life training in MMA. Her uncle, Samuel Iron Hands Johnson, had fought in cages from Dublin to Bangkok. When Amara was 9, he started teaching her not just punches and kicks, but control, discipline, the kind of restraint that kept you from throwing a punch just because someone insulted you. He'd always say, "The best fighter is the one who never has to fight, but if you have to, end it quickly." In London, her training was part of her weekly routine. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, drills, sparring, bag work, grappling. Her uncle had a small gym in Peckham, the kind that smelled of sweat and disinfectant, with walls covered in faded fight posters. Amara had grown used to the sting of a glove to the jaw, the burn of push-ups after rounds of pad work, the sound of her own breath when she was pushed to her limits. By the time she was 15, she could disarm, disable, or pin an opponent twice her size. But no one at St. Albans knew that. The first weeks at her new school had been quiet, but not in a peaceful way. She noticed the looks, the sideways glances when she spoke in class, the whispers behind her back in the cafeteria. It wasn't new to her. Being a black girl in a predominantly white school meant you learned to read those looks early. Some were just curiosity, others carried the edge of disdain. She'd learned to ignore it. What she couldn't ignore was the group of students who had decided she was their new favorite target. They weren't the biggest troublemakers in school, but they had a presence that made teachers tread carefully. The ringleader was Chloe Barnes, blonde hair, sharp tongue, and the kind of confidence that came from knowing her father was on the school board. With her were two shadows, Sarah, tall and wiry, who laughed at everything Chloe said, and Megan, quieter but no less cruel. At first, it was small things. A shove in the hallway, a chair pulled away as Amara sat down, a whispered insult as she walked past. Then came the comments about her hair, her skin, the way she spoke. "Why do you talk like that?" Chloe had asked one day in the cafeteria, her voice loud enough for the whole table to hear. Amara didn't answer. She kept eating, eyes on her tray. Chloe smirked, satisfied. At home, Amara never mentioned any of it. Her mother was already working herself to exhaustion. The last thing she needed was to worry about school drama. Instead, Amara channeled her frustration into her solo training sessions. She didn't have her uncle's gym anymore, but she had a heavy bag in the corner of her room and a set of resistance bands. On quiet evenings, the sound of her gloves thudding against the bag echoed through the small flat, each strike measured and precise. There was one person at school who seemed to notice her. Without judgment, a boy named Liam Patel. He sat 2 rows ahead of her in English class, his messy black hair falling into his eyes. He was quiet too, but in a different way. Where Amara was guarded, Liam seemed thoughtful, like he was always somewhere else in his head. They didn't talk much, but once, when Chloe accidentally spilled juice on Amara's notebook, Liam passed her a clean sheet of paper without a word. That small gesture lodged itself in her mind. Still, Amara's days at St. Albans were defined by routine. Arrive early, avoid Chloe and her friends, keep her head down, go home. She counted the weeks until summer break. But tension has a way of building, even in silence. And in the shadows of that tension, a shift was coming. The kind that would turn her quiet existence into something no one in that school would forget. It began, oddly enough, with gym class. The indoor gym at St. Albans was a rectangular room, with faded basketball lines on the wooden floor, the smell of old sneakers hanging in the air. On a Thursday afternoon in late November, the rain hammering against the high windows, the class was split into groups for a fitness circuit. Amara was in a corner, doing push-ups, her mind elsewhere. She didn't notice Chloe, Sarah, and Megan whispering in the center of the room. By the time she did notice, they were watching her in a way that made her pulse quicken, not out of fear, but awareness. There was something different in Chloe's smirk that day. It wasn't the usual teasing grin. It was sharper, hungrier. For now, they said nothing. But Amara had the unsettling sense that the quiet was temporary, like the pause before a storm. That night, as she shadowboxed in her room, the rain tapping against the window, she thought about her uncle's words again. The best fighter is the one who never has to fight. She hoped he was right. She hoped she'd never have to show these people who she really was. But deep down, she knew the day was coming. The next week at St. Albans High School began like any other. Cold mornings, gray skies, the smell of damp coats in the corridors. By now, Amara had learned the rhythm of the place, when to take the long route to class to avoid running into Chloe and her friends, which lunch table in the far corner gave her the most space. But that Monday, there was something different in the way Chloe looked at her. It wasn't just amusement anymore, it was calculation, the kind of gaze that meant she'd already decided what she was going to do. The first incident that day was almost invisible to anyone else. In the science lab, as students filed in for the first period lesson, Chloe brushed past Amara and let her hand accidentally knock a folder from under Amara's arm. Loose sheets scattered across the floor. Amara knelt quickly, gathering them in silence, ignoring the smirk Chloe threw over her shoulder. No teacher said anything. Maybe they hadn't seen it. Maybe they didn't want to. By lunchtime, the taunting was louder. Chloe, Sarah, and Megan sat 2 tables away, but seemed to aim every laugh in Amara's direction. Liam Patel noticed. She saw it in the way he glanced between them and her, but he didn't say anything. In a school like St. Albans, getting involved meant making yourself a target. It was Thursday afternoon when things crossed the invisible line. Rain lashed against the gym's high windows, and the fluorescent lights flickered faintly as students filed in for pay. The teacher, Mr. Davies, was the kind who believed in letting students push themselves while he retreated to his office with a mug of tea. The class was told to run a circuit, skipping rope, push-ups, medicine ball passes, and a final station where students practiced short sprints along the far wall. Amara kept to herself, starting at the push-up station, focused on her breathing, counting each repetition in her head. Her muscles burned in that familiar, satisfying way, the kind that told her she was alive, in control. But between sets, she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. Chloe and Sarah had stopped their skipping rope station earlier than everyone else and were standing near the mats, watching her. Megan was nowhere to be seen. She told herself to ignore it. Focus. Finish the set. But as she straightened up, shaking out her arms, Sarah stepped forward. "Hey, Amara," Sarah said, her tone mock-friendly. "Bet you think you're strong, huh?" Amara gave no reply. Her uncle's voice in her head, "Don't engage unless you have to." She picked up a medicine ball, ready to move to the next station. That's when Chloe moved. It happened fast. A sudden grip on her backpack strap from behind, jerking her backwards. She stumbled, the medicine ball slipping from her hands and thudding to the floor. Before she could regain her footing, arms snaked around her neck from behind in a sloppy but forceful chokehold. For a fraction of a second, Amara's body froze. It wasn't fear, it was instinct. Her mind calculating angles, weight distribution, the position of Chloe's arms. She could smell Chloe's perfume, hear Sarah laughing somewhere to her left. The pressure around her throat tightened. It wasn't enough to cut off her air yet, but the intent was there. Chloe's voice was low in her ear. "Not so quiet now, are you?" Her uncle's voice cut through her mind like a blade. "If you can't walk away, you end it quickly." Amara's hands came up, not to claw or pull at the arm around her neck like most people would, but to trap Chloe's choking arm against her shoulder. Her feet shifted, planting firmly. In a single fluid motion, she bent her knees, turned into the grip, and threw her hip backward, flipping Chloe over her shoulder. The impact of Chloe's back hitting the gym mat echoed through the room. Sarah's laughter died instantly. Megan, who had been filming from the sidelines, lowered her phone, eyes wide. Amara straightened, her breathing steady, her stance still guarded. She didn't follow through with a strike. She didn't need to. Chloe was on the mat, coughing and clutching her back, the chokehold long forgotten. For a heartbeat, the gym was silent except for the rain hammering the windows. Then Mr. Davies emerged from his office, clearly having missed the entire lead-up. But seeing Chloe on the ground and Amara standing over her, "What's going on here?" he demanded. Chloe's voice cracked, half pleading, half angry. "She attacked me." Amara didn't respond immediately. She knew how this would look. She was new, she was different. And Chloe had the kind of influence that could twist a story before the truth had a chance to breathe. But before Mr. Davies could press further, Liam spoke from across the gym. "That's not what happened. She was choking Amara." The teachers' eyes moved between them, uncertain. "Everyone back to your stations," he muttered finally, though his gaze lingered on Amara as if he was trying to decide whether to call her to his office later. The rest of the class passed in a haze. Chloe stayed quiet, nursing her pride. But the look she gave Amara before leaving told a different story. This wasn't over. That night, Amara sat on her bed, gloves hanging loosely around her neck, replaying the moment in her head. She hadn't wanted to use her skills, but the chokehold had left her no choice. She wondered how long it would take for the video Megan had filmed to spread, and whether it would show the truth or only the part where Chloe was on the floor. One thing was certain. The quiet girl no one noticed had just been noticed, and in a place like St. Albans High, that could be more dangerous than any fight. The last bell of the day rang with a sharp clang, but Amara didn't join the usual rush of students toward the exits. She lingered in the changing room, waiting until the sound of chatter and slamming lockers faded. The fluorescent light above her buzzed softly, throwing a pale glow on the scuffed tile floor. She pulled her hood over her head, shoved her damp gym clothes into her bag, and slipped out into the nearly empty hallway. The corridors had that post-rain smell, damp carpet, faint cleaning fluid. Her footsteps echoed more loudly than she liked. She passed the notice board near the main entrance, its corners curled from humidity. Someone had pinned a flyer for the upcoming school dance. A cluster of younger students whispered near the water fountain, their eyes flicking toward her and then away. Her phone vibrated. She pulled it from her pocket, and her stomach sank. A message from an unknown number contained only a link and a laughing emoji. Against her better judgment, she clicked. The video was low quality, grainy, but unmistakable. It began mid-action, Chloe flying through the air over Amara's shoulder, landing with a thud. There was no audio of the taunts, no footage of the chokehold starting, no Sarah's laugh ringing out. Just the moment of the throw and Chloe sprawled on the mat. The caption beneath the video read, "New girl thinks she's some kind of ninja." By the time she reached the bus stop, her phone had buzzed 7 more times. Messages from Liam, from one of her old friends back home, from numbers she didn't recognize. Liam's was the only one she opened. "I saw it. We need to talk." The ride home was long and quiet. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the view of red brick buildings and corner shops. She sat in the back, the rhythmic thrum of the engine almost lulling her into calm, almost. But every time the bus hit a bump, her mind replayed Chloe's grip on her neck. When she stepped off at her stop, Liam was already waiting outside his small MMA gym 2 blocks from her flat. He was still in his training gear, black hoodie over compression shorts, hands wrapped from a previous spar. His eyes were calm but sharp, scanning her face for cracks in her composure. "Come inside," he said simply. The gym smelled of leather and disinfectant. Heavy bags swung gently from chains overhead, their motion from some earlier session. The mats were still warm underfoot. "She grabbed you first?" Liam asked, no preamble. "Yes," Amara said. "From behind, chokehold." He nodded slowly. "And you used a hip throw?" "Yes," he exhaled. "Controlled. You didn't follow through?" She shook her head. "Good," he said. "But you know the problem now." "They'll say I attacked her," she finished for him. He gave a small, grim smile. "You learn. Fast." They trained for the next hour in near silence. The only sounds the thud of gloves against pads and the faint squeak of her bare feet pivoting on the mat. Liam pushed her harder than usual, making her repeat escapes from rear holds until her forearms burned. When they finished, he tossed her a towel. "The fight's not in the gym now," he said. "It's out there, in the story they tell." The next morning, the whispers were louder. Someone had posted the video on the school's private forum, where comments piled up beneath it. "Didn't know she could do that. Looks fake. Chloe's gonna end her at lunch." The air in the cafeteria felt thick. Conversation seemed to pause when she passed. Chloe sat at her usual table, perfectly composed, a thin smile playing at her lips. She looked like someone who had already mapped out her revenge. Sure enough, by the end of the day, a new rumor was circulating. That Amara had attacked Chloe during pay, for no reason. That she was dangerous. That her uncle ran some kind of underground fight club. The principal, Mrs. Ellison, called her into the office before last period. The space was too warm, the air faintly scented with peppermint tea. Mrs. Ellison's expression was carefully neutral, but her words were not. "I've reviewed the situation," she began. "And while I understand there was provocation, physical altercations are not tolerated here. We can't have students feeling unsafe." "I wasn't the one who," Amara started, but the principal raised a hand. "I'm placing you under a behavioral watch," she said. "No further incidents, or we'll have to consider suspension." On the walk home, Amara's fists clenched in her pockets. The injustice of it burned hotter than the humiliation. She had been attacked, defended herself, and now the system itself seemed to be siding with her aggressor. That night, she didn't sleep much. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her uncle's words looping in her mind. "It's not about the fight. It's about the story." The next morning, she made herself a quiet promise. If Chloe wanted a story, Amara would give her one, but it would end on Amara's terms, from here. Episode 3 will dive into the escalation of open conflict with Chloe, pushing boundaries further, the school's administration becoming more of an obstacle than a help, and Amara beginning to strategize not just for defense, but for control of the narrative. The Monday after the incident in the locker room felt different, not because anything dramatic happened in the first few hours, but because the air in the corridors carried a new texture, a quiet, electric tension. Amara sensed it before she saw any faces. She'd learned to pick up on the shifts in body language around her, like the way people seemed to step a little wider around her space, or the hushed clusters that stopped talking the moment she came into view. The bruising on her neck from Chloe's chokehold had faded to a faint yellow-green shadow, barely visible unless someone was looking for it. Still, she kept her hoodie zipped up, the soft cotton pulled close around her collarbones. She didn't feel like giving them the satisfaction of seeing any lingering mark. But that didn't stop the whispers. "Careful," she heard one boy murmur to his friend as she passed near the lockers. "She's like some kind of cage fighter." The other boy snorted but didn't laugh out loud. They weren't mocking. It was more the nervous tone people use when talking about someone dangerous to Doc. Chloe was nowhere to be seen in the first half of the day, which almost felt like a reprieve. Sarah and Megan, though, made their presence known in subtler ways. They drifted into her path in the cafeteria, not blocking her outright, but making her shift course, turning every movement into a quiet test of boundaries. The kind that didn't get you written up, but that chipped away at your patience. By the time lunch rolled around, Amara found herself eating in the art room, perched on a stool by the window while rain tapped against the glass. Mrs. Hensley, the art teacher, barely noticed her there. She was the sort of teacher who believed silence was golden if it meant students were working. Amara didn't mind. The smell of paint and clay was better than the suffocating mix of fried food and gossip in the canteen. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. For a moment, she debated ignoring it. Then she checked the screen and saw the Instagram notification, @Chloe_Taylor, tagged you in a post. Her stomach tightened. She tapped it open, her thumb hovering as the image loaded. It wasn't a picture of her exactly, more like a blurry, zoomed-in shot from the gym last week, where she was standing in the corner doing push-ups. Overlaid in red letters were the words, "I'm a psycho. Avoid at all costs." The caption read, "Guess she's not so tough outside the cage." There were already 47 likes and a thread of comments, some laughing emojis, some knife emojis, and a few that just said things like yikes or scary. One from Megan read, "Bet she hits her family too." Amara locked the screen and set the phone face down on the windowsill. Her heartbeat was steady, not racing, but there was a hot pressure building just behind her ribs. This was different from the physical shove or the hand on her throat. This was meant to spread, to stain her name without anyone having to touch her. That evening, at the gym, she hit the heavy bag harder than usual. Liam noticed, of course. He always did. "You're letting your hands fly, but your head's not here," he said, holding the bag steady after she sent it swinging. "It's here," she muttered, throwing another jab-cross combo. "It's somewhere else. You're not breathing right. What happened?" Amara didn't answer immediately. The sound of her gloves slapping the bag filled the pause. "They're not coming at me straight anymore," she said finally. It's this other thing. Now online, in the hallways. Like they're trying to make me into something I'm not, so everyone else will keep their distance." Liam nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting something like this. "They're switching from physical to psychological. Means you made them nervous enough to change tactics. That's not weakness, that's desperation. But it also means you can't just swing your way out of it." She stopped, sweat trickling down the back of her neck. "So what do I do?" "You keep control of your own story," he said, his voice even. "And you make sure they can't take that from you. In here," he tapped his temple, "and out there. The rest of the session was slower, more deliberate. Liam had her work on breathing drills, on pacing her movement, on staying calm while defending against feints. It was less about hitting and more about reading the subtle cues in someone's stance, the little shifts that gave away intent. By the time she left the gym, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, the streets shining under the yellow glow of the street lamps. She didn't check her phone again until she was back in her room, towel wrapped around her shoulders. The post from earlier had doubled in likes. There was a DM, request from someone she didn't recognize. Heard you choked a girl out at school. Wanna fight for real? Followed by a string of laughing emojis. She deleted it without replying, but the message sat in her head like a stone. She thought about what Liam had said, about keeping control of her story, and for the first time, she wondered what it would take to turn this around, to make sure the next chapter wasn't written by Chloe or anyone else. Tuesday began with the brittle chill of early morning air clinging to the sidewalks, the kind that made breath visible in pale puffs. Amara walked to school with her hood up, not because of the cold, but because it created a thin, psychological barrier between her and whatever waited on campus. By second period, she realized Chloe was back. She spotted her through the open doorway of the science lab, the same casual, confident posture, leaning against a desk while laughing with her entourage. The sound grated in Amara's ears, not because it was loud, but because of the undercurrent in it, the kind of laugh that meant she already had something planned. Sure enough, between classes, Chloe made her move. Not physically, that would have been too obvious, but with a kind of practiced cruelty that didn't need direct confrontation. Amara was standing at her locker when a girl she didn't even know brushed past her and whispered, "Psycho." She turned sharply, but the girl was already gone. At first, she thought it was random. Then she noticed two boys further down the hallway watching her, smirking. One held up his phone in mock secrecy, pretending to film her. By lunchtime, it was clear. Chloe had spread a new rumor that Amara had been expelled from her old school for putting another student in the hospital. The story was vivid enough to take root. A cafeteria fight, a cracked rib, blood on the floor. None of it was true, but truth wasn't the currency here. Sensationalism was. She ate alone again in the art room, this time unable to focus on the sketch she'd started the day before. Her pencil hovered over the paper without moving. Each time she thought about drawing, her mind drifted back to the hallway, to the sideways glances, to the way people's expressions shifted when they thought she wasn't looking. When the final bell rang, she didn't go straight to the gym. Instead, she walked the long way home, letting her thoughts churn. She wasn't afraid of Chloe. She wasn't even afraid of a fight. What she hated was this slow erosion, this drip feed of lies and looks that made her feel like she was shrinking in a place she used to walk through without hesitation. By the time she reached the gym, Liam was already in the middle of coaching two younger fighters. He glanced at her briefly, giving the nod that said he'd talk when he could. She wrapped her hands slowly, focusing on the ritual of it, the pull of the fabric, the snug turn around her wrists, the final tuck. When Liam finally came over, she didn't waste time. "They're building a whole story about me now," she said, her voice steady but low, "and people are believing it." "Then you have two choices," Liam said, holding the mitts up for her. "You can waste your energy trying to convince everyone it's not true, or you can make it irrelevant." She started throwing jabs, the sound of leather meeting leather echoing in the gym. "How do you make something like that irrelevant?" "You stop reacting the way they expect you to," he replied. "They're pushing for a public outburst, something they can twist into proof. Don't give it to them. Keep your head, and keep moving forward." It sounded simple, but Amara knew it wasn't. Every instinct screamed to call Chloe out, to throw her lies back in her face. But Liam was right. That was the trap. That night, after a long shower, she opened her laptop. Instead of scrolling through social media, She started researching. Not Chloe, not the rumors, but tactics. How people had dealt with smear campaigns. How public figures had turned hostile narratives around. One phrase stuck with her: control the frame, or you'll live in theirs. The next morning, she walked into school with a calculated calm. Her hoodie was gone. Instead, she wore a simple black t-shirt, her posture upright, her gaze steady. She knew Chloe would notice the change, and she wanted her to dot. It didn't take long. By third period, Chloe intercepted her in the hallway. "Nice shirt, fighter girl," she said, her voice dripping sarcasm. Sarah and Megan flanked her like shadows. Amara didn't stop walking. "Better than hiding behind a screen," she said, her tone level. She didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just kept moving. For a fraction of a second, Chloe's smirk faltered, not much, but enough for Amara to see it. She stored that away like a small victory. The rest of the day wasn't easier, but it was different. The whispers were still there, the sideways look still pricked at her skin, but she'd shifted her mindset. Instead of flinching inward, she started cataloging who repeated the rumor, who looked uncertain, who avoided her entirely. Liam had taught her to read an opponent's stance. Now she was reading the social battlefield. After school, she told Liam about the hallway exchange. He grinned. "That's the first step. You didn't give her the energy she was looking for." "I still feel like they're winning," she admitted. "They're not winning," he said. "They're working harder now than they were before." Means you're harder to move than they expected. Walking home that night, Amara thought about that. She didn't feel invincible, but she felt anchored. And maybe, for now, that was enough. Wednesday morning was heavy with low gray clouds that seemed to press down on the city. The air smelled faintly of rain, and Amara felt that weight in her chest as she walked toward the school gates. Her mind was already bracing for whatever angle Chloe would take today. It didn't take long to find out. In first period history, Amara noticed people glancing at her and then exchanging knowing looks. When she caught fragments of whispered words, scholarship, cheating, fake grades, her stomach tightened. Another rumor. By the second break, the full story reached her. Chloe had been telling people Amara's MMA involvement wasn't just a hobby, but part of a deal. That she'd bribed her way into the school through some shady program. And her sports scholarship was covering for bad grades. It was pure fabrication, but the way it was being repeated, with fake sympathy and exaggerated details, made it seem believable to those who wanted it to be. The worst part wasn't the students. This time, it was the teachers. During math, Mr. Kessler, who had always been distant but professional, paused at her desk to quietly suggest she focus on academics first. It was said kindly, but with that slight hesitation in his voice. The same one she'd heard when people had already made up their minds. It was like being trapped under glass. She could see what was happening, could hear the muffled voices, but every move to fight back made her look defensive, like she had something to hide. At lunch, she didn't go to the art room. Instead, she sat on the far edge of the bleachers by the sports field, watching the clouds finally break into a slow drizzle. She needed this space to think, to figure out her next step. Her phone buzzed. At first, she thought it was Liam checking in, but the notification made her pause. An anonymous Instagram account had tagged her in a story. She opened it and felt her jaw clench. The post was a grainy, zoomed-in video of her training at Liam's gym, probably taken from the street. Through the open bay door. Over it, someone had written, "Watch out, she's dangerous. This is who's in your school." It had been reposted multiple times already. She didn't reply. Didn't post anything. Instead, she pocketed her phone and sat still, letting the rain darken her hair. This was no longer just about hallway whispers. Chloe was pulling the fight into the digital arena, where things could spread faster and stick longer. That evening, she told Liam. He didn't look surprised. "You're in the part of the fight where your opponent tests your patience," he said. They're trying to bait you into swinging wild so you'll leave an opening. I'm not in a ring, she muttered. You are, Liam countered. It just doesn't have ropes around it. Same rules apply. You need a plan. Over the next week, Chloe's tactics grew sharper. She started targeting anyone who interacted with Amara. A girl in chemistry who'd once lent her a pencil was suddenly iced out of their friend group. A boy in her pay class who'd said hello was told he was next on her hit list if he kept talking to her. The social pressure worked. Amara found herself moving through the school like a ghost. Interactions reduced to necessity. One afternoon, as she sat in the library working through a physics assignment, she overheard two juniors at the next table whispering. One said, "She's probably going to snap one day." The other replied, "Yeah, and we'll all say we saw it coming." That comment burrowed under her skin, because it was exactly the narrative Chloe was building, that Amara was a ticking bomb. One angry outburst and everything would click into place for everyone watching. That night at the gym, Liam changed her training. The heavy bag was replaced with sparring drills that focused on control under pressure. He'd feint low, shove her shoulder, throw quick combinations designed to frustrate her, all while taunting lightly. "Keep breathing," he'd remind her when her rhythm broke. "They want to mess with your timing. Don't let them." By the end of the session, sweat ran down her spine and her knuckles throbbed under the wraps. But she also felt sharper, not just physically, but mentally. The following morning, when she walked into school, Chloe was waiting near the entrance. Her eyes flicked over Amara's face, searching for cracks. "You hear they're talking about expelling you?" Chloe asked, voice casual but loud enough for others to hear. "Guess fighting's not a great look on a transcript." Amara met her gaze and said nothing. Then she smiled, small, deliberate, not warm at all, and kept walking. It wasn't victory, but it was control. And right now, that was worth more. Friday afternoon had that strange mix of exhaustion and restlessness that always hung in the air before a weekend. The final bell was still an hour away, but people were already counting the minutes. Amara sat in chemistry, half focused on her notes, when she noticed an unusual silence ripple through the back row. She glanced over. Chloe was typing on her phone under the desk, smirking. A few others leaned in, eyes darting toward Amara and then back to the glowing screen. Her own phone buzzed in her pocket. Against her better judgment, she checked it. It was a live video stream. Someone, clearly one of Chloe's friends, was broadcasting from an empty hallway, where a crude drawing of Amara's face had been taped to a locker. Around it were post-it notes with words like monster, fake, and psycho. People were laughing off camera, daring others to add more. The comments were coming fast. Some were from kids she recognized. Others, probably from strangers online, were crueler, suggesting she be expelled, arrested, even locked up before she hurt someone. Her fingers tightened around the phone. A pulse of heat rose in her chest, that dangerous edge she'd been learning to control in the gym. She could already see herself walking out, ripping down the paper, confronting them, making it stop, if only for a moment. But Liam's voice cut through the thought. "They want you to swing first." She put the phone face down and focused on the foyer. Bored. By the time class ended, the stream had racked up hundreds of views. When she stepped into the hallway, she braced herself, and sure enough, the display was still there. Chloe leaned against a nearby locker, laughing with her crew, clearly waiting for a reaction. Amara walked past without a word. She didn't even glance at the paper. The laughter faltered for a moment. Still, the restraint cost her. She carried the weight of that moment all the way home, her shoulders aching from the tension. That night at the gym, Liam didn't start with drills. Instead, he handed her a jump rope. 3 rounds, he said. She obeyed, the rhythm of the rope slapping the mat filling the air. It was only after her breathing steadied that he spoke again. "You're doing well." he said. Most people would have taken the bait today. She gave a short laugh. I wanted to. Of course you did, he said. That's what makes you human. What makes you a fighter is not giving them what they want. They worked through rounds of shadowboxing and grappling transitions, but Liam kept the emphasis on breathing and pace, controlling the tempo instead of chasing it. The following week, Chloe's tactics evolved. It wasn't just her crew anymore. Other students, emboldened by the online posts, started joining in. Someone slid a note into Amara's locker that read, "Countdown to your meltdown. Can't wait." The digital harassment grew worse. Accounts Amara didn't follow tagged her in edited videos, splicing clips of her training with ominous music and fake headlines. Teen fighter snaps at school. It was relentless. One night, she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, scrolling through the latest wave of comments. A few defended her, but most were the same recycled cruelty, faceless and loud. Her aunt passed by, noticing the look on her face. "Don't read that stuff," she said gently. "I can't ignore it," Amara replied. Her aunt hesitated. "Just don't let it change who you are." Those words stayed with her. Because the truth was, it was changing her, not into what Chloe wanted, but into someone sharper. She had stopped seeking comfort in others' opinions. She'd stopped explaining herself to people who had no interest in listening. By Thursday, Chloe made her boldest move yet. During the morning assembly, where the whole school gathered in the auditorium, Chloe orchestrated a scene. As the principal wrapped up announcements, a phone alarm blared from somewhere in the crowd. A boy in the front row shouted, "It's the meltdown countdown." Laughter erupted. Someone pointed toward Amara. The timing was perfect. The principal was already dismissing the assembly, and staff were too focused on crowd control to investigate. Amara stood slowly, feeling every pair of eyes on her. Chloe was near the aisle, her smile like a challenge. She walked past her, steady, not looking down. When she reached the exit, she let the door swing closed behind her, cutting off the noise. Outside, in the empty hallway, she exhaled. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear, from the effort of holding herself in check. That night, her training was different. Liam blindfolded her and had her defend against light pushes and taps, forcing her to rely on hearing and instinct. "You don't need to see every punch to control the fight," he said. "Sometimes you just have to feel where it's coming." By the end of the session, she was exhausted but clear-headed. She didn't know when or how this would end, but for the first time in weeks, she felt like she wasn't just reacting anymore. She was preparing. Monday morning brought a cold drizzle that clung to the air and made the pavement slick. The kind of weather that kept people's heads down, hands buried in pockets. Amara preferred it that way. Fewer eyes meant fewer chances for Chloe to make a scene, but the quiet didn't last. By mid-morning, whispers traveled faster than the rainwater down the windows. Someone had posted a new video overnight, not just edited clips this time, but a full-on documentary about her. It was almost cinematic in its cruelty, cutting between footage of her in the gym, slow-motion shots of and knockouts from pro fights, and text overlays asking, "When will she lose control?" The soundtrack was heavy bass and rising tension, ending with a freeze frame of her face and the words, "Coming soon to a hallway near you." Even students who'd stayed neutral before were watching it on their phones, snickering in class. Teachers either didn't notice or pretended not to. At lunch, Amara sat alone in the far corner of the cafeteria, picking at her food when she heard the shift in the crowd's tone. The low hum of conversation thinned into small bursts of laughter and gasps. She turned. Chloe was walking between tables, holding her phone high, recording. She stopped just close enough for her voice to carry. "Here she is, the main event," Chloe announced, spinning slowly to capture the reactions of everyone nearby. "Hey Amara, you gonna give us a preview? Maybe flip a table? Punch a wall?" The cafeteria erupted with laughter. Phones were out everywhere now. Amara felt her chest tighten. She could see the path in her mind. Get up, take Chloe's phone, end this. But she also saw the other path, the one Liam kept drilling into her. Stay in control, even when it burns. She stood slowly. The noise dipped. Chloe's smile widened. Without a word, Amara picked up her lunch tray, walked to the bin, and dumped it. She left the cafeteria without so much as a glance back. The restraint didn't feel like victory, not yet. But it was a choice. Her choice. That evening at the gym, Liam didn't waste time with warm-ups. You ever hear of fighting in the pocket? He asked. She nodded. Close range, trading hits. Right, he said. But it's not just physical. Life's got a pocket too. People will stay in your face, crowd your space, throw shots just to see if you flinch. You can't run from that. You've got to work in it. Keep your head. Pick your moments. They drilled clinch work, tight elbows, knees to pads. The movements were exhausting in a way that felt deeper than muscle, like the training was wiring something into her nerves. Midway through the session, Liam paused. You're getting there. But remember, this isn't just about winning a fight. It's about choosing the fight you want to win. The next day, the fight almost chose her. It was after school, the sky darkening early from thick clouds. Amara was heading toward the front gate when she heard footsteps quicken behind her. Hey! Chloe's voice cut through the air. Amara kept walking. You too scared to talk to me now? Chloe called out, louder. The parking lot had pockets of students still milling around. Heads turned. Phones came out again. Amara stopped and faced her. What do you want, Chloe? Chloe smirked. Just a chat. Maybe a little demo. I mean, you train all the time, right? Show us something. She stepped closer. Too close. Amara felt her fists curl at her sides. The voices of the onlookers faded under the sound of her own heartbeat. Then, a sharp memory. Liam, hands up in a sparring drill, saying, breathe. See the whole picture. She exhaled. Double quotes. Not here, Amara said. Not like this. She turned and walked away. Behind her, Chloe laughed. But there was a strain to it this time, a note of irritation. The crowd dispersed slower than usual, unsure if they'd just witnessed a win or a loss. That night, Amara stayed at the gym later than usual. Liam had her working on feints, moves that looked like attacks but weren't, forcing an opponent to commit too early. This, Liam said, is control. You make them think they're in charge, then you decide when it's real. As she practiced, Amara realized something. She wasn't just enduring anymore. She was shaping the outcome. The storm was still building, but now she was steering toward it. The day began with an unusual buzz of energy at St. Albans High School. The usual gray Manchester sky was tinged with a faint golden light that promised the first break of sun in weeks. Students shuffled through the halls with a mixture of nerves and excitement, rumors swirling like the autumn leaves pushed along by the wind outside. Everyone seemed to know something was coming. The tension was almost tangible, crackling like static in the air. Amara felt it too. She moved through the halls with quiet confidence, her lean figure wrapped in a fitted black jacket over a white tee, jeans that allowed for movement, and her short afro neatly styled. She had trained for this moment, though no amount of preparation could entirely erase the lingering tension that curled in her stomach. Chloe Taylor, for her part, was already pacing near the main entrance, surrounded by her usual crew. Sarah and Megan flanked her, faces bright with anticipation and the smug satisfaction of someone who believed victory was imminent. Chloe's usual air of superiority was amplified today, her eyes scanning for Amara like a predator seeking its prey. The bell rang for the first period, but the day's schedule was about to be disrupted. A loud announcement echoed through the corridors. The principal had arranged for a special assembly in the gymnasium, urging all students to attend. The message was curt but clear. This was to be an event unlike any other at the school. Whispers. erupted among the students. Many speculated what the assembly might be about. Some thought it would be a confrontation, others a peace talk, but few expected what was about to unfold. When the students gathered in the gym, the room hummed with nervous energy. The bleachers were packed, phones out and ready to record. At the center, a small makeshift ring had been set up, ropes taut, mats laid beneath. It looked unmistakably like a fighting ring. Amara's heart thudded louder than the chatter. She caught a glimpse of Liam standing quietly near the side, giving her a brief nod of encouragement. His calm presence steadied her. The principal stepped up to the microphone, his voice firm but tinged with unease. "Students, faculty, today we address a situation that has affected many in our community. To resolve this, and to prevent further incidents, we have arranged for a supervised demonstration, a way for grievances to be aired in a controlled environment." A murmur swept through the crowd. Amara's gaze shifted to Chloe, whose smirk had deepened into a challenge. This was what she had been waiting for. As the principal gestured toward the ring, Chloe stepped forward first, her posture confident and defiant. Then Amara moved, stepping into the ring with a composed but steely expression. The air was thick with anticipation. Cameras clicked, whispers rose into a roar of expectation. The fight was about to begin. The atmosphere in the gymnasium was electric. Every eye fixed on the ring where Amara and Chloe faced each other. The fluorescent lights above cast stark shadows, emphasizing the taut muscles and determined expressions of both girls. The crowd's murmurs crescendoed into excited chatter as the principal raised his hand to call for silence. "Before we begin," he said, "this is not a sanctioned fight but a demonstration to settle differences peacefully and under supervision. I expect all participants to conduct themselves with respect." Chloe rolled her eyes but said nothing, standing poised with a cocky smile. Amara's jaw was set, her gaze unwavering, radiating quiet strength honed from months of training and turmoil. The referee signaled them to touch gloves, a formal gesture that felt oddly symbolic in this context. Amara's hand was steady as she met Chloe's brief contact. The crowd watched in rapt silence. Chloe made the first move, a quick jab aimed to test Amara's reflexes. Amara easily dodged, stepping back gracefully. The subtle shift in her stance showed she was ready to counter, every muscle alert and poised. The next few moments were a blur of controlled exchanges, punches, feints, quick footwork. Chloe's style was aggressive but reckless, fueled by arrogance and the need to intimidate. Amara, on the other hand, moved with precision and calm, each movement economical and strategic. The audience erupted with cheers and gasps as Chloe lunged forward, aiming for a knockout blow. Amara sidestepped, catching Chloe's arm and executing a smooth takedown that brought her opponent to the mat. For a split second, the gym was silent. Then Chloe pushed herself up, face flushed with shock and fury. She lunged again, but Amara was ready, locking in a controlled hold that forced Chloe to tap out. The referee raised Amara's hand in victory. The crowd exploded with applause and cheers, some students jumping to their feet. Amara's chest heaved, but her expression remained composed. Chloe stormed out of the ring, her face a mask of humiliation and rage. Sarah and Megan followed quickly, casting venomous glances at Amara. Liam stepped into the ring beside Amara, offering a quiet smile of pride. Amara met his eyes, the weight of the moment settling in. This fight was more than a demonstration. It was a turning point, a public reclaiming of strength and dignity in the face of cruelty. The aftermath of the fight reverberated throughout St. Albans High School like a seismic wave. For days, hallways buzzed not with whispers, but with open admiration for Amara. Her victory in the ring was undeniable, not just because she had physically bested Chloe, but because she had done so with calm control and integrity. The spectacle was no longer a battleground of rumors and fear, but a testament to resilience. Yet, beneath the surface of newfound respect, tension simmered. Chloe's defeat only deepened her resentment, fueling a desperate hunger for retaliation. Rumors mutated, now painting Chloe as the wronged party, a victim of Amara's aggression. The school's social dynamics shifted into a complex dance of alliances and silent judgments. Teachers tread carefully, wary of the mounting pressure. Some expressed private concerns to Amara about her future and the potential fallout of such a public confrontation. The principal, meanwhile, attempted to frame the event as a constructive resolution, hoping to steer the school community toward reconciliation. Amara herself wrestled with conflicting emotions. Relief and pride mingled with exhaustion and the weight of expectation. The fight had been a crucible, but the road ahead promised no simple peace. Her training sessions with Liam evolved accordingly. They delved deeper into mental resilience. Visualization exercises, stress inoculation drills, and strategies to maintain focus amid chaos. Liam emphasized that fighting was as much about controlling one's mind as one's body. One evening, after an intense session, Amara sat quietly in the gym's locker room. Liam joined her, his tone serious yet supportive. "You've faced the storm," he said, "but storms don't last forever. What matters is how you rebuild when the sky is clear." Amara nodded slowly. "It's just hard to know who's really with me." "True allies often reveal themselves in the toughest times," Liam replied. "Trust those who stand steady, and let go of those who don't." The weeks that followed brought subtle but meaningful changes. A few students who had once avoided Amara began to offer genuine greetings. Some teachers showed quiet support, providing opportunities for Amara to excel academically and socially. Still, the scars of conflict lingered in sideways glances, whispered conversations, and the occasional snide remark. But Amara was no longer the isolated target she had been. She was a force, a symbol of strength forged through struggle. The climax of the battle was behind her, but the journey toward peace and self-acceptance was just beginning. The weeks following the school gym confrontation settled into a new rhythm for Amara, but the echoes of the event remained palpable. The social landscape of St. Albans High was forever altered. The murmur of gossip quieted, replaced by a cautious respect that hung in the air like a fragile truce. Amara found herself at a crossroads. The battle she had endured was not merely physical but deeply personal, reshaping her sense of identity and place within the school community. She wrestled with the desire to simply be seen as a normal student, free from the shadow of conflict, and the knowledge that her fight had made her a symbol, whether she liked it or not. In her training sessions with Liam, the focus shifted toward rebuilding and growth. They worked not just on technique, but on vision, setting goals beyond the ring, envisioning a future where strength was measured not only in physical prowess, but in resilience, kindness, and leadership. One chilly evening, as Amara jogged through the quiet streets near the gym, her phone buzzed. A message from a classmate she barely knew. "Hey, just wanted to say you handled everything like a champ. Proud of you." It was a small gesture, but it carried the weight of changing tides. At school, moments like that became more frequent. A nod in the hallway, a shared smile in the cafeteria, a group project invitation. Slowly, the walls Amara had built around herself began to crack. Yet healing was not linear. There were days shadowed by doubt, moments when the past felt too heavy. But each time, she drew strength from the journey she had taken, from the fights lost and won, inside and out. The story of the black girl who had once been choked and bullied, unaware to her tormentors that she was a deadly trained MMA fighter, was no longer just about pain or survival. It was about rising, stronger, wiser, and unapologetically herself. As the school year moved forward, Amara embraced a new chapter, one defined not by fear but by fierce hope and determination. The weeks after the gym showdown brought a quiet but profound shift in Amara's world. The school corridors, once echoing with whispers and sideways glances, softened into spaces of tentative acceptance. The storm that had threatened to consume her seemed to lose its ferocity, replaced by a gentle, steady breeze of change. Amara moved through her days with a new sense of groundedness. She was no longer just the girl who fought back. She was a student, a friend, a fighter learning to balance strength with grace. The routines Liam had helped her build became anchors. Morning jogs through the damp streets of Manchester, focused training sessions in the gym where each punch and kick was a meditation, and quiet evenings spent sketching or reading to calm her mind. At school, the atmosphere evolved gradually. Some students approached her with cautious smiles, others with genuine warmth. Teachers, too, shifted their attitudes, offering support without condescension. Mr. Kessler, who had once hinted at concern over her attitude, now nodded approvingly. When she handed in an especially well-crafted essay, one afternoon, as Amara gathered her books from her locker, a small voice called out, "Hey, Amara." She turned to see Emily, a junior who had sat alone in the library during lunch for months. Emily's eyes were bright but shy. I wanted to say thanks for showing us all how to stand up." Amara smiled, a real one this time, and nodded. "Thanks, Emily. Means a lot." That simple exchange marked a turning point. It was proof that her fight had ripple effects beyond the physical. It was about courage, dignity, and inspiring others to find their own strength. Yet, healing wasn't a straight path. Old wounds surfaced in unexpected ways. Some days, the scars of bullying and isolation felt raw, and the weight of expectation pressed heavily. She caught herself replaying moments, the chokehold in the hallway, the jeers in the cafeteria, and wondered if she would ever truly escape those shadows. One evening, as the rain pattered against her bedroom window, Amara confided in Liam over a video call. "Sometimes it feels like I'm still fighting," she admitted, voice soft, "even when I'm alone." Liam listened patiently. "Healing is a fight too," he said gently. "It's the kind you have to win a little every day." Encouraged, Amara committed herself to new goals, improving her grades, joining the debate team, volunteering at a local youth center. Each step was a stitch in the fabric of her new life, weaving resilience with hope. At home, her aunt noticed the change too. "You're growing into yourself," she said one morning over breakfast. "Not just as a fighter, but as a young woman with so much to offer." Amara nodded, feeling a quiet pride. The journey wasn't over, but she was no longer afraid to face it. The school year moved forward, and with it came new routines that subtly rewrote Amara's narrative. The relentless pressure of the past months gave way to a steady rhythm. Early mornings spent reviewing notes, afternoons at the gym refining techniques, and evenings dedicated to quieter pursuits. The transformation was not dramatic but gradual. Like the slow bloom of spring after a harsh winter. In class, Amara found herself more engaged than ever. The debate team welcomed her with open arms, intrigued by the quiet strength she carried beneath her calm exterior. Standing before an audience, crafting arguments and listening thoughtfully, she discovered a new outlet for her voice. It was different from the physical battles she'd fought, but no less challenging. Here, words wielded power, and she was determined to master them. Socially, the landscape shifted. Friends emerged from unexpected places. Emily, once a shy observer, became a steady presence, often sharing lunch or walking home together. Even some of Chloe's former allies began to drift away from their old roles, drawn by Amara's growing confidence and the respect she earned. Yet, the scars of past conflicts lingered. Occasionally, Amara caught sight of Chloe in the hallways, her expression tight, a mixture of bitterness and grudging acknowledgement. Their encounters were brief but charged, a silent acknowledgement that their battle had left marks on both. At home, Amara's aunt continued to be a pillar of support. She encouraged Amara to explore her interests beyond fighting and school, nurturing her talents in art and music. One afternoon, they visited a local community center where Amara volunteered to teach self-defense classes for young girls. Experience was both humbling and empowering, allowing her to transform her journey into a source of strength for others. The gym remained a sanctuary. Liam pushed her to new heights, emphasizing mental toughness and emotional balance alongside physical skill. "You're not just building a fighter's body," he told her during one intense session. "You're forging a warrior's spirit." One evening, after a particularly grueling workout, Amara sat on the edge of the mat, catching her breath. Liam approached, holding a folded piece of paper. "I got this from the school counselor," he said, handing it to her. "They want to feature your story in the school newsletter, not just the fight, but everything you've done since." Amara looked at the paper, surprised but quietly proud. The article portrayed her not as a fighter alone, but as a young woman who had faced adversity and emerged stronger, inspiring others along the way. That night, she shared the news with her aunt over dinner. Her aunt's eyes shone with pride. "You've come so far, Amara. This is just the beginning." Amara smiled, feeling a warmth that had little to do with the food on her plate. It was the glow of hope, the promise of a future she was ready to claim. As the days grew longer and the chill of winter receded, Amara found herself embracing a rhythm that balanced growth and reflection. The weight of the past conflicts gradually lifted, replaced by a steady confidence that came from knowing she had survived and thrived against the odds. Her involvement in the school community deepened. The debate team flourished with her contributions, and Amara found a voice she hadn't known she possessed. Crafting arguments, presenting ideas, and listening to opposing views sharpened her intellect and gave her new tools to navigate life's challenges. One afternoon, during a heated debate on social justice, Amara's calm, reasoned arguments earned the admiration of her peers and even some teachers who had once doubted her. The victory wasn't just in the points she made, but in the respect she commanded through her integrity and clarity. Outside the classroom, Amara continued her volunteer work at the community center. Teaching self-defense to young girls became a passion project, a way to give back and empower others. Each session reminded her of how far she had come, transforming pain into purpose. The gym remained a constant refuge. Liam pushed her beyond physical limits, but also challenged her to understand the importance of emotional resilience. "Fighting isn't just about power," he said one day. "It's about balance, strength with compassion, control with freedom." Their sessions evolved into more than training. They became a space for growth, healing, and planning for the future. Liam encouraged Amara to set goals beyond fighting: college applications, career paths, personal dreams. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside the gym windows, Liam surprised Amara with an invitation. "There's a regional MMA tournament coming up," he said, "and I want you to compete, not just to fight, but to show the world who you are." Amara hesitated, memories of past battles flashing through her mind. But then she thought of her journey, the challenges overcome, the lessons learned. This was an opportunity to step fully into her identity, to claim her strength on her own terms. She nodded slowly, determination lighting her eyes. "I'm ready." The weeks that followed were filled with intense preparation, physical, mental, and emotional. Amara balanced school, volunteering, and training with newfound purpose. Friends rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. The night before the tournament, Amara sat quietly in her room, visualizing the upcoming fight. She imagined the crowd, the lights, the rhythm of the match. But more than that, she focused on the calm at the center of the storm, her breath, her balance, her will. As she drifted to sleep, she knew this was more than a fight. It was a celebration of everything she had become. The day of the regional a tournament dawned clear and crisp. a contrast to the stormy months that had shaped Amara's journey. The venue buzzed with energy, competitors warming up, coaches giving last-minute advice, families and friends filling the stands. It was a world apart from the high school halls that had once confined her, now a stage where she could showcase her strength and growth. Amara moved through the warm-up area with calm focus. Liam was beside her, offering quiet encouragement and tactical reminders. Her muscles remembered the rhythm, the footwork, the breathing, the balance between aggression and control. But beneath the physical preparation was something deeper. A sense of peace with who she was and what she had fought to become. Her first match began smoothly. Opponents tested her with quick strikes and grapples, but Amara's training and resolve held firm. Each victory was a step not just toward the trophy, but toward reclaiming her narrative, from bullied girl to confident fighter, from victim to victor. Between matches, Amara noticed familiar faces in the crowd. Emily waving enthusiastically, her aunt beaming with pride, and even some teachers from school who had come to support her. Their presence was a reminder that her journey had touched more lives than she realized. The final match arrived with mounting tension. Her opponent was skilled and fierce, matching Amara's strength and agility. The bout was a dance of wills. Attacks and defenses, feints and counters. A test of endurance and spirit. In the final moments, with the crowd on edge, Amara summoned every lesson learned, from the chokehold that had sparked her fight, to the calm control Liam had taught her, to the inner strength forged through hardship. She executed a flawless takedown, securing the win as the referee raised her hand once more. The gym erupted in cheers, but Amara's eyes searched the crowd for one face, Chloe's. She saw her, standing alone near the exit, expression unreadable. There was no celebration there, only quiet acceptance. Later, as Amara stood on the podium holding her medal, Liam approached. "You've come full circle," he said softly. "This is just the beginning." Amara smiled, the weight of the past lifted. The fight she had feared was no longer something to dread, but a path she walked with strength and purpose. Her story, the black girl once choked and bullied at school, now a deadly trained MMA fighter, was no longer one of pain, but of triumph. And as she looked forward to the future, Amara knew she would carry that truth with her, always. The months after the regional MMA tournament marked a period of reflection and growth for Amara Johnson. The victory had been more than a medal or a moment in the spotlight. It was a milestone that symbolized the journey from hardship to healing, from silence to strength. Yet, with the applause fading into memory, Amara found herself facing new questions about identity, purpose, and what it truly meant to move forward. At school, the shifts in perception were profound. Peers who had once ignored or judged her now sought her out, drawn by the aura of resilience she embodied. Some conversations were tentative, others warm and genuine, but all carried the unspoken acknowledgement that Amara was no longer just a girl who fought. She was a young woman shaping her own story. Teachers recognized her determination and potential, offering mentorship and encouragement. Mr. Kessler, once a distant figure, now took a personal interest in Amara's academic aspirations, recommending resources and connecting her with community programs. The debate team flourished under her leadership, and she relished the chance to engage with ideas and peers in ways that challenged and inspired her. Outside school, Amara's volunteer work expanded. The self-defense classes she led grew in popularity, attracting girls from various neighborhoods eager to learn not just physical techniques, but confidence and self-worth. Amara saw in their eyes reflections of her own journey, the fear, the determination, the hope. Her relationship with Liam deepened beyond coach and trainee. He became a mentor, a friend, and a source of steady support. Their conversations often ventured beyond fighting, exploring themes of resilience, identity, and dreams. Liam encouraged Amara to consider the broader impact she could have, not just as a fighter, but as a leader and role model. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped low over Manchester's skyline, Amara sat in the gym's quiet corner, reviewing college applications. The decision to pursue higher education felt both daunting and exhilarating. She knew it was a path that would require strength of a different kind, intellectual, emotional, and social. Her aunt noticed the change too, often remarking on Amara's maturity and vision. "You're stepping into your future," she said, gently, "and it's bright." Amara smiled, feeling the weight of those words settle warmly in her chest. The journey had not been easy, but it had been hers. A story of endurance, transformation, and hope. As autumn deepened, the pace of life around Amara settled into a new, steady rhythm. School days were busy but balanced, with moments carved out for study, training, and the quiet joys of friendship. The fight that had once defined her existence no longer loomed as a shadow, but rather as a chapter she had mastered and moved beyond. Amara found herself increasingly drawn to leadership roles, inspired by the power of community and the strength in shared stories. At the community center, she proposed expanding the self-defense program to include discussions on mental health and resilience. With Liam's support and the center director's approval, the initiative blossomed, creating a safe space where young people could explore their fears and triumphs openly. Her own experiences lent authenticity to these sessions. She spoke not only about fighting techniques, but about the courage to stand up, to speak out, and to reclaim one's narrative. The girls who attended listened intently, often sharing their own struggles and dreams. Amara saw in them reflections of her younger self, unsure but yearning to be strong. At school, the debate team thrived under her guidance. Amara encouraged thoughtful discourse and respect for diverse viewpoints, fostering an environment where voices could be heard without fear. Her teammates admired her calm confidence and ability to bridge divides, qualities that extended beyond the classroom. In the quieter moments, Amara continued her training with Liam, honing skills that were no longer solely about defense, but about balance and growth. Liam emphasized that strength was multifaceted, physical, mental, emotional, and that true power came from harmony among them. One afternoon, after an intense session, Liam shared a story from his own past, of challenges overcome, mistakes made, and lessons learned. The openness deepened their bond, and Amara felt grateful for his mentorship, a steady beacon in her evolving journey. As winter approached, Amara began preparing her college applications in earnest. She wrote essays reflecting on her experiences, not as tales of victimhood, but as testaments to resilience and hope. The process was both challenging and empowering, a chance to shape her future with intention. Her aunt stood by her side throughout, offering encouragement and practical support. Together, they researched programs that aligned with Amara's interests: social work, psychology, sports science, fields where she could continue to make a difference. One evening, after submitting her first application, Amara sat quietly in her room, reflecting on the path she had traveled. The journey from a bullied teenager to a confident young woman was marked by moments of pain and triumph, struggle and growth. Yet it was hers, unique and powerful. She felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, carrying the lessons of the past as guides and shields. Spring edged into the city, softening the chill of winter and awakening the world around Amara with new life. The subtle shift in seasons mirrored her own transformation, from a girl weighed down by fear and uncertainty into a young woman who carried her scars with quiet dignity and strength. Amara's days grew fuller, balanced between school, training, volunteering, and moments of introspection. The self-defense classes she led at the community center flourished, becoming more than physical lessons. They evolved into forums for healing, empowerment, and connection. Young girls shared stories of struggle and hope, finding in Amara not just an instructor but a kindred spirit. Her role as a mentor deepened, filling her with a sense of purpose beyond the ring. She recognized that strength was not solely measured by physical prowess, but by the courage to be vulnerable and authentic. At school, Amara's academic achievements reflected her growing confidence. Teachers noted her dedication and thoughtful insight, while classmates sought her counsel on both debate topics and life's challenges. The social barriers that had once isolated her crumbled, replaced by friendships forged through respect and shared experiences. One afternoon, as she walked home with Emily, their laughter mingled with the gentle hum of spring blossoms. Amara felt a lightness she had never known. The shadows of bullying had receded into the background, no longer defining her story but enriching it. Amid these changes, Liam's mentorship continued to anchor her. Their conversations often turned to future possibilities: college, career, community leadership. Liam challenged Amara to envision her life beyond immediate struggles, to dream boldly and act with intention. "You're not just a fighter in the ring," he said during one session. "You're a force for change in the world." The words resonated deeply, sparking a fire within Amara's heart. She began volunteering with local organizations focused on youth empowerment and social justice, expanding her impact and embracing a broader vision of leadership. Her relationship with her aunt remained a steady source of love and wisdom. They shared quiet evenings discussing hopes and fears, celebrating milestones both large and small. The bond was a refuge, reminding Amara that she was never alone. As the school year neared its end, Amara received news that her college applications had yielded positive responses. Offers from several universities arrived, opening doors to new adventures and challenges. As sitting by her bedroom window one evening, Amara allowed herself a moment of reflection. The journey from that first painful encounter in the school hallway to this hopeful future was marked by resilience, growth, and the unwavering support of those who believed in her. She smiled softly, ready to step forward into the next chapter, a story still unfolding. Written by her own hand. The summer sun warmed Manchester's streets as Amara prepared to leave behind the city that had shaped her story. The journey from bullied girl to empowered fighter and mentor was etched into every step she took. The final weeks before college brimmed with farewells, celebrations, and moments of quiet reflection. Friends gathered around her, sharing memories and hopes. Emily's smile was radiant, a testament to the bond forged through shared struggles and triumphs. Her aunt's steady presence remained a comforting constant, offering support and pride in equal measure. On the last day of school, Amara stood before the debate team one final time as captain. Her speech was heartfelt, a call to courage, empathy, and resilience. She spoke of challenges overcome and the power of community, inspiring her peers to embrace their own journeys with strength. As she stepped off the stage, applause ringing in her ears, Amara felt a profound sense of closure and beginning intertwined. The girl who had once been choked and bullied had reclaimed her narrative, transforming pain into purpose. The night before her departure, Liam visited one last time. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of gratitude. He handed her a small journal, its pages blank but promising. "Write your story," he said softly. "Not just the past, but the future you'll create." Amara accepted the gift with a smile, feeling the weight of possibility in her hands. The morning of her departure dawned clear and bright. As she boarded the train to university, Amara gazed out at the cityscape, memories flickering like a film. Real, the fights, the friendships, the lessons learned. Her heart swelled with hope and determination. The road ahead was unknown, but she was ready, armed with strength, courage, and a story uniquely her own. And as the train pulled away, carrying her toward new horizons, Amara whispered a quiet promise to herself: to live boldly, to lead with compassion, and to never forget where she came from. Her journey was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching this powerful story of courage, resilience, and transformation. The journey of Amara Johnson, a young black girl who was bullied and even choked at school, but who fought back with strength and determination. As a deadly trained MMA fighter, reminds us all of the incredible power we hold within ourselves to overcome adversity. Bullying is a painful reality for many students around the world, but Amara's story shows that with the right support, inner strength, and skills like self-defense, it is possible to reclaim one's dignity and rewrite the narrative of pain into one of empowerment. Throughout this story, we saw how Amara's journey was not only about physical fights inside the ring or the hallways of her high school, but about the emotional and mental battles she faced. It was about standing up against bullies, overcoming fear, and transforming trauma into personal growth. Her training in mixed martial arts, or MMA, gave her the tools not just to defend herself, but to build confidence, discipline, and resilience that extended beyond fighting. It's a reminder that self-defense is as much about the mind as the body, and learning to trust ourselves can change how we face challenges in life. What's inspiring about Amara's story is the way she turned her struggle into an opportunity to empower others. From volunteering to teach self-defense classes at her community center, to leading her school debate team with grace and determination, she became a beacon of hope and leadership. This is a testament to the fact that true strength isn't just about winning fights. It's about lifting others up, building community, and creating positive change. Her story encouraged all of us to look beyond the surface and recognize the power of empathy, courage, and perseverance. For those watching who may be facing bullying or difficult situations, remember that you are not alone. Like Amara, there is strength inside you waiting to be discovered. Whether it's learning self-defense, seeking support from trusted mentors, or finding your voice through activities like debate or art, every step you take towards standing up for yourself is a victory. The journey to overcoming adversity can be challenging, but it is also filled with moments of growth, connection, and triumph. If you found this story meaningful, please consider sharing it with others who might benefit from hearing it. Bullying is a widespread issue, and spreading awareness through stories like Amara's can help create more understanding and support in schools and communities. Empowerment comes from knowledge, community, and the courage to stand tall even when faced with hardship. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content about real-life stories of resilience, transformation, and hope. Your engagement helps us bring these stories to a wider audience and supports the creation of meaningful, uplifting videos. If you have experiences you'd like to share or topics you want us to cover, please leave a comment below. We love hearing from you. Remember, whether it's bullying, discrimination, or personal challenges, every person has the power to rise above. Like Amara, you can find strength through training, support, and self-belief. You can reclaim your story and become a leader in your community. Let her journey remind us all that while pain may be a part of our story, it doesn't have to be the ending dot. Thank you again for watching. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep fighting for your dreams. Until next time.